Hi, and welcome to my FlossTube channel. I'm Jean Farish, and I am so very glad that you're here with me today. While much of the nation is buried under snow, and more snow, we actually have sunny skies and not an inch of the white stuff where I live. So if you are housebound and curled up with something nice and warm to drink and you're stitching, then I am happy to entertain you for the next few minutes. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about those humbugs that I showed you last week, give you a little bit more details about those. And I'm going to bring you up to date on where we are with the stitch-alongs. I have some very, very good news with that. But I'm going to start with an apology. I really goofed a couple of weeks ago when I announced how I was going to be doing 12 giveaways, one per month during this year to help celebrate my 40 years as a cross-stitch designer and teacher. I very naively thought that I would be able to go into my YouTube account. You know, we call it FlossTube, but it is technically YouTube. So I went behind the scenes in my YouTube account and could see how many subscribers I have. And I thank you all very much for subscribing. And somehow I naively thought that I would actually see a list of names to know who has subscribed. And so based on that assumption, I announced that I would choose the winners of each month's giveaways from my subscribers. Well, I found out that I couldn't do that because the list of names is not visible to me. So after much thought and some brainstorming with my good friend Sheila, you may know her from Sunshine Stitchers FlossTube, brainstormed and figured out a couple of things. So going forward, starting with this next week, I'm going to choose a winner based on a combination of comments and subscriber status. So what you need to do is make a comment using a keyword celebrate and also be a public subscriber. Now, let me explain a little bit about this so that there won't be any misunderstanding. So I made a couple screenshots here to help you understand what I'm talking about. When I go in and look at comments, this is what I see. So I blanked out the names so that, you know, just to protect people's privacy. I'm not really sure it's necessary, but I did it. So this is what I see. This is just 3 comments that I just chose at random. And you can see where the second and third one, there's a little red circle with an icon in there that kind of looks like, I guess it's supposed to be a lock. So when I mouse over that little icon, a little pop-up box appears and shows me, for example, that this person is publicly subscribed. And at the time that I made the screenshot, they had subscribed 3 days prior. So what that told me was that there are people who could be subscribers, but if their subscriber status is not public, I won't know it. So then I decided, well, you know, I need to figure out how a person changes that status in case anybody wants to, because a little bit of research showed me that the default status is private. You have to actively go in and change your status to public. So let me just walk you through how to do that. So those blue letters that say learn more is a link that will take you to this page and explain to you how you can change your subscription privacy settings if you choose to. Now, again, this is totally up to you. So I've enlarged the really critical part here so you can see it more clearly. And basically it's very, very easy. You sign into your YouTube account by just clicking on your picture. And from there you go to settings and choose on the left menu, you'll see where it says privacy. Now, I did this on a MacBook, and I know that all these configurations are different depending on whether you're using a phone or a tablet, and whether it's an Apple device or an Android device. So I can only tell you what I did on my MacBook. The little thing that you have to click on to tell whether you want it on or off, to me, isn't really clear. But if it's not in color, then it's in the off position, and you just move that little dot over to the left, and then it will be active. Now, I'm thinking that the way to test this is if you make a comment and you look at your own comment and you don't see that little red circle with the icon in it, then your subscriber status isn't public. And you might want to go back and take a look at that. Okay, so to recap, between now and next week, I'm going to do the giveaway that was supposed to be for January. The keyword is celebrate. Now, in order to choose the person and get everything all together, I will need to, as a cutoff, will be next Thursday, which is February 11th. So I'm going to actually make the choice on February 11th, and then I will announce it on the 13th. And I'm going to announce it in 3 ways. One is I will actually make a comment on that person's, I'll add a comment to that person's comment and tell them that they're a winner. I will put it in next week's notes that go along with the episode. And of course, I will announce it during the actual episode. So that's 3 ways I'll try to get the word out to that person. And I'm going to give them a week to respond. If they don't respond, then I'll choose another winner from that same batch of people. Yeah, so that's, again, you know, I'm sorry that I really thought I had looked into it thoroughly. And there's a whole long story of the screen that I saw that I thought was a list of names that wasn't, and I won't bore you with that. But bottom line is I goofed. And so as a result, this next 5 or 6 days will be to choose somebody who would have been the January winner. And then the second half of the month will make a February winner, and then I'll be up to date with that. And now for the absolutely spectacular news, and that is that all the floss that I ordered for the Roxie Stitch-Along kits is on its way here, right on schedule. I am over the moon, as they say. And so let me tell you where we are with that. A couple of really important things to know. First of all, if you emailed me and got a response from me about a kit or a chart order, then you're probably in pretty good shape. If you think that you ordered one from me, but you haven't gotten a response from me, then something has gone amiss. So please email me again, or better yet, forward the original one to me. I've had a couple of cases where people didn't put my email address in correctly, and then of course I didn't get it. So it is not too late to order the chart. I do have a wait list for kits. There's always a chance that people will drop out for one reason or another. And so we have been able to move a couple of people from the wait list to the kit list. So don't hesitate to let me know if you would like to be put on the wait list. So this weekend, we will be sending out a second round of emails. Now, we use a software program that's pretty common called MailChimp. And you will get an email from me again with specific instructions about payment and how to actually be able to enter your address, etc. if you're getting a kit. Now, of course, if you're getting a chart, I don't need your mailing address. So look for that this weekend. And, you know, if you don't see it in your inbox, look in your junk folder or spam folder or whatever you call it. And a little tip that I recently learned is to do a search. And if you put in the word Roxie, R-O-X-I-E, in the search block within your, whatever your email program is, there's a search box there. And if you put in the word Roxie, any emails that you've received with that name in it will come up. So that's a really easy way to track the correspondence between you and me. And that will also let you know, if you don't see that email right away, then, maybe that little search thing will lead you to it. So one of the things that's especially essential about that, not only so that you know how to do the payment part of this, because at this point I have not asked for a payment from anyone for the chart or for the kit. So that's a critical step. But also that MailChimp software program is how I will be sending out the charts as we go along. So if your email software is dumping those emails into your junk folder, then you're probably going to want to let your email, whatever it is, I don't know what you call it. Anyway, whoever's in charge of your email program, you need to let them know that that email address is legitimate by adding it to your contacts or whatever it is that you need to do. I mean, I am not a technical expert at all. Like most people, I bumble along and figure it out as I go along. So getting that email is critical so that you know that you're in, you know how to do the payment, and you have recognized that address so you'll be able to get all 6 parts of the email chart as they come along. Let's see. Oh, also this first month, that will be starting March 1st, you won't need all the floss colors. And so I'm going to put a list in the channel comments for this episode of which colors you will have to have for that first section. And I really am trying to make this as stress-free as possible. So if you are missing a floss skein, just let's just roll with it. And if you have ordered it and it hasn't come yet, you can always stitch around that. You can just skip that part or whatever and fill it in once you do get the color. So, let's just not make ourselves crazy with any of this stuff. Oh, one thing, if you are doing the variegated option, and that is an option, you can stitch this without the variegated, which I'm using for the quote. Don't cut that skein yet, because I'm going to show you a different way to cut up that variegated skein. So that's kind of one thing I wanted to remember to tell you. It's been kind of frustrating because I don't have very many visuals to give you since this is a mystery sampler. You are trusting me. So far, all I can really show you is, this is kind of a comparison between the upper part here is what the original Roxana Corson sampler, the original antique that was kind of the springboard for this whole thing. So that's the top image that you have here. And then I have a little screenshot here of part 1. So you can kind of get an idea of how they're alike and yet they're so different from each other. And I am really excited about this. Let's see. Oh, one other thing. When this email software that we're using that will give you the PDF download for each month's section will also include the link to the video tutorial. Now, these video tutorials are private. The only people who will be able to access them are the ones who have gotten the kit or the chart from me. And I just really want to ask you not to share that with anybody. I do this because I love it, but it's also my livelihood. So I am going to ask you to respect that, both the chart and the video links as well. Oh, and also one other thing, I had mentioned this before, that the chart pack that you get each month will have a Aida option and a linen/even weave option. So if you are in a situation where you have to pay for printing or whatever, you won't have to print both sections. They will be very clearly labeled as to which pages go with which option. They're not the same charts because the satin stitch really cannot be done on Aida, and so I had to rechart it for my Aida stitchers. So I think that's about it about Roxie. But I'm, again, I'm excited. It is not too late to participate. And even, if you're kind of on the fence because the idea of a mystery sampler doesn't really appeal to you because you'd like to see the whole thing, at some point along this whole process, if, come April or May, you decide that you want to participate, then, you can always get the chart then and catch up to us. So, that's an option too. Okay, that's it for Roxie. And that brings me to Jane. So Jane Hattersley Stitch Along is not a mystery stitch along. We know exactly what it looks like. This one is a reproduction of an antique. And because Jane has a date of April 9th on her sampler, April 9th, 1832, this is a stitch along that begins on April 9th of this year. So this one's very, very different from the Roxie stitch along, and that it's not a mystery, and that I am working with participating shops to produce the kits, and the shopkeepers have come up with just some amazing combinations of fabrics and threads, way beyond anything that I ever imagined, and so there's really something for everyone. When I first introduced Roxie, I started stitching it on a linen that's very similar to the original linen, and that is called Mariner's Map. And I also decided to kind of brighten it up a little bit, stitching it on kind of a very soft white. And then that meant changing the floss colors a little bit. And that was as far as I took it. But we have some shop owners who have ventured into kitting it up with silks, kitting it with some very, very fine linens. And because Jane Hattersley is done entirely in cross stitch, then that meant that those who prefer to stitch on Aida could also join in, which is really exciting. So the way to participate in this is to contact your favorite local needlework shop. And I am going to once again include the list of those that are I can talk. I'm going to include the list of those who are participating in the channel description. And so you can certainly contact them. And if your favorite shop isn't on that list, don't hesitate to reach out to them and let them know that you're interested. Then all they have to do is contact me and we'll set them up. So from these participating businesses, you can get the kit and or the chart for Jane Hattersley. Now, for people who live outside the United States or who only want the chart and prefer a PDF download, they can get that from my Etsy store. And previously, I had announced that I would download that as of March 1st. But as I started thinking about this episode today, I thought, why wait? I might as well as list it now. So as of this morning, you can go to my Etsy store and download the PDF version of Jane Hattersley. So if you want the print version, you need to contact the shop. If you want somebody to kit it up for you, you need to contact the shop. Because I have my hands full with Roxie, so I was not didn't even entertain the notion of kitting up Jane as well. So that stitch along will begin April 9th, and we'll kick it off with a live stitch-in on Facebook and some Zoom things, and I don't know. I haven't thought about all the different ways that we can promote that, and I'm certainly open to ideas. So that's pretty much a wrap for Jane. Last week, I demonstrated putting together these little humbug things, and I showed you a little bit of stitching during that episode and the complete steps on putting them together. And I got so many questions about the linens that I used, and I certainly, my takeaway from that experience is from now on, even if I'm stitching from stash, which I was in this case, I will always endeavor to tell you what type of linen I used. Now, the one that's kind of on an off-white, this is such a scrap. I really have no idea what this linen is. But it is on a 28 count linen, which explains why the two are, you know, different sizes a little bit. Because this one, I do know, this is a scrap from Mariner's Map. And this one is listed as a 30 count linen, but when I have measured it out, I have gotten 32 threads to the edge. So that's the one, that's what I use for this one. And in both cases, when I say scrap, I mean the piece of linen was probably maybe 5 by 7. So, you know, dig around, and if you have a piece of Aida or linen that that you've used for some other project, and it's just, you know, just that little tiny piece, that's perfect for this. The other question I got about the humbug was the type of beads, and all I can tell you is that they're seed beads. I, again, was, you know, using leftovers, and so I can't tell you anything more about that. And I was stitching with a number 28 needle, which I had no problem whatsoever picking those beads up with a 28 when I was working with the seed beads. So that will probably answer some questions right there. I was delighted to hear from so many people that have already stitched a couple of them. They are so quick to stitch, and it is so much fun just playing around with different color combinations. So if you haven't already done so, go back and look at episode number 20, what was that, number 27, and you can, you know, certainly catch up and, you know, just make a couple little gifts. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about Aida fabric for cross stitch and how it's woven and how it is the same as and how it's different from linen and other even weaves that we use for cross stitch. Many people stitch on Aida for years without really looking at the way it's woven and understand how it actually functions. What I want to show here, and I hope I'm going to be able to do this on this close-up, is that each square of Aida is actually made up of 4 threads crossing 4 threads. I'm going to have to get a needle here to get these separated, I think. You may have noticed this sometime if your fabric started unraveling. So the warp and the weft are both sets of 4 threads. You can see this very clearly right here. There's 4 threads in here. So that's going in this direction. How about in the other direction? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you stitch on Aida, each square that gets a stitch is actually 4 threads crossing 4 threads. Whereas if you're stitching on linen in the traditional over 2 method, and right now that's all I want to talk about. I'm not going to get into the over 1. So trying to compare apples to apples. When we talk about the difference between stitching on Aida and stitching on linen, Aida, you're stitching 4 threads crossing 4 threads. With linen or even weave, you're stitching with 2 threads crossing 2 threads. So way back in the 1800s, and frankly, I don't know exactly what the date is, somebody and I believe it was this Weigert company, figured out that if they adjusted the plain weave a little bit so that 4 threads were interlocked with the other 4 threads in the way they were woven, then the threads would not shift like they do with a plain weave with linen. And that made it easier for people who were picking up this new trend of counted cross stitch. It made it easier for them to keep their tension consistent. And that's basically the purpose behind Aida, is to create a fabric that is woven in such a way that it is easy to see where the squares are for the corresponding stitch from the chart, and woven in such a way that good tension is easier to achieve. Aida comes in counts from 6 stitches to the inch, which we used to call Herta, and I'm seeing from my online research that more commonly now it's just referred to as 6 count Aida. So on the large end, as far as size of stitches, you've got 6 stitches to the inch, going as fine as 18 or 20 stitches to the inch. So pretty much across the board, 6 count, 8, 11, 14, 16, 18, and 20 count Aida. Now, very often I see comments in different stitch groups where people talk about stitching on Aida, and they'll say, I was stitching over 1 on Aida. That's pretty standard. To stitch anything else is almost like not even worth mentioning. So when you are talking about stitching on Aida, the phrase of over 1 and over 2, it just doesn't apply, because each square is being represented by 1 symbol on the chart. My hands have gotten cold while we've been talking about this. So the easiest way to explain this to a novice, which may or may not be you, but if you're an experienced stitcher, very often you will encounter people who are learning or who are asking questions. But in essence, each symbol on the chart represents a stitch taken on 1 square of Aida. And whenever there are blank squares on the chart, then you skip that many squares on the Aida. Whereas when you're stitching with linen over 2, then each symbol on the chart is being represented by 2 threads crossing 2 threads. And wherever you have blank squares on the chart where there's no symbol for color, then those are sets of 2 threads crossing 2 threads that are skipped. So I hope that helps just a little bit to understand why Aida is so popular, how it's woven, and how it really is structured in such a way to make it easier for people to do counted cross stitch. So that's about it for today. I'm going to go upstairs and get a refill on my tea and kick back a little bit and stitch. And I hope that this is going to just be a wonderful week for you. And between now and next week, I hope that you stitch happy and stay safe. I'll see you then.